A racist superintendent faces fifth discrimination lawsuit in 2 years. According to many, this is a really racist individual based on opinion. Put it up full mass. Wow. Hell of a story here. A white superintendent who has admitted to using the N-word, okay, preventing Black principals from sitting together during meetings, is now facing fifth discrimination lawsuit in 2 years. What has happened? Pleasantview Elementary School principal Falicia Moreland-Trice brought the federal lawsuit against Eastpointe Community Schools and its superintendent, Miss Christina Gibson. She alleges that the district leader has made racist remarks and cultivated a racially hostile work environment, specifically against Black employees. According to the suit, Ms. Gibson admitted to using the N-word in front of Black school district employees, did not allow Black principals to sit together at district meetings when white school teachers could sit anywhere they'd like, and talk down to Black female employees. Now, I have a whole lot more background to this story, but I want to remind you, these individuals are in a professional environment. All of them have substantial education to work as certified teachers and members of the administrative faculty. And this is happening in their public conversations. We're not talking about some one-off meeting where somebody said one thing and another person said something else. She's saying this in front of groups of individuals and enacting these policies of where a Black principal, a leader of a school, can sit during district meetings. So Moreland-Trice also listed one specific instance from July 2024 where she was with Ms. Gibson at a training and heard her state that Black people would be more inclined to shop at Whole Foods if the store offered, quote, chitterlings and greens, end quote. The principal also claimed that Gibson said her school, quote, would be treated differently than another elementary school in the district that was run by a white principal. At one point, Moreland-Trice made a request to Gibson to relocate some of her students to that other school due to overcrowding and a lack of seating. The request sought to relocate a portion of Pleasantview Elementary's 320 students to Bellevue Elementary, where only 205 students were enrolled. Gibson refused, according to the suit, and told Moreland-Trice, quote, your kids can sit on the floor, end quote. Gibson also moved teachers from Pleasantview to Bellevue, purchased seating for Bellevue's classrooms, and approved more resources for Bellevue's use. Okay, we have rules against this. We have a major case, federal case against this. This is unequal distribution of resources. That's what this is. There's more. Because Pleasantview's teachers were relocated, Moreland-Trice was forced to start teaching multiple classes in addition to performing her principal duties, the suit states. So you don't have enough educators inside of the building. You have a principal who has already been told, according to the allegation, that her school is going to be treated differently because it has a Black principal. Teachers are taken away from the institution, so much so that the principal has to cover the classes directly. There's more. Moreland-Trice also detailed a separate instance in which she prohibited a parent from attending a Pleasantview moving up ceremony after the parent brought a handgun to school and was arrested for brandishing a firearm. Gibson overruled Moreland-Trice's decision and invited the parent and family members to the ceremony anyway. In fear for her life, Moreland-Trice refused to attend, but Gibson forced her to show up anyway. The lawsuit states, which led to a violent encounter in which the parent physically and verbally assaulted the principal, Miss Moreland-Trice. Gibson is also accused of withholding COVID-19 hazard pay from Miss Moreland-Trice, even though she approved the payment for the white school administrators who also worked in person during the pandemic. Moreland-Trice also claimed that Gibson threatened to fire her if she spoke about racism at district meetings. She's not the first employee to file a lawsuit. What you have is a dynamic of culture indicative of protecting the behavior of seemingly racist leadership. Moreland-Trice is the fifth employee, Eastpointe Community Schools employee, to file a racial discrimination suit against Gibson in the last 2 years. According to CanGnews.com, 4 former Black district employees, including another principal, a security administrator, and a special education teacher, all filed separate federal complaints in 2023 and in 2024, alleging Gibson displayed a pattern of retaliation and racial discrimination. At a September board meeting, 2024, the former special education teacher called Gibson racist, inept, and corrupt, and said she runs the district like her own personal crime family. Moreland-Trice seeks a jury trial to decide compensatory damages in the case. We're going to continue to follow this, but I can't imagine working in such a hostile environment and then having a leader in an educational setting where children are supposed to be the focus, deciding to penalize the children because they're biased against you. Obviously, this is going to work itself through the court system. You may have the beginning of potentially a class action lawsuit given the amount of individuals who have been affected in the same company, i.e. the school. All right, Ben, thoughts here?
I mean, in her defense, it's just 5 discrimination lawsuits in 2 years. It could be worse. It could be 10 in 1 year. So there's always that going for her. If she gets a 6th racial discrimination lawsuit this year, she gets a free tire rotation, from what I understand. So she's just getting those cards punched. You wonder why people, the old saying, if you can do, teach. I think in this case, it's more like if you can't do your job without being super racist, then run the whole damn district. What a seemingly, just from the evidence presented, obviously hearsay, terrible person who just should not be in any sort of position of power over the education of people, over the people teaching our young people in this country. But no surprise to anybody, it happens time and time again because for some reason, the system does not have checks and balances in place enough to remove these negative racist forces. And we tried as a society, and the Trump administration has undone that so fast that any progress we were making to be able to try to correct these historic wrongs and these systemic wrongs now is just much more difficult to do. So, it's a tough situation. It's unfortunate, but hopefully the justice system is still in place enough that these suits can, teach this person something that they can't teach others, which is all people are the same, and stop it with your just discriminatory garbage.
That's right. And I have to think about how extreme this is, because we're talking about principals. We're talking about people who work in the school system. Typically, they see a lot and they experience a lot, and they don't say a lot. They don't file federal discrimination lawsuits holistically. It's not something that's common. But to have 5 done in 2 years, and for the superintendent to admit to using the N-word, and she still has her job there, I applaud those who have spoken up. But keep this in mind. You're not just speaking up for yourself. You're speaking up for all of the students. You're not just speaking up for the Black students. You're speaking up for the white students. You're speaking up for the brown students. They deserve to know better. They deserve leadership that cares.
And also, Doc, when you're admitting to using the N-word, something that typically is grounds for firing in and of itself, when that's what you're admitting to and you're denying the rest, look at the deep well of racism that must be there.
That's right. That's right. We're going to bring you updates as they come.